People often say that for the fact you failed does not mean you are a failure. All my life, I have accepted that statement that for the fact you have failed does not mean you are a failure. But on the long run, as I begin to ponder and meditate on God's word and meditate on the precepts of wisdom, I began to realize that to an extent, that statement is true. But to a certain dimension, that statement may not actually be true. There are lots of people who have failed and they continue to be failures. There are some people who have failed and they ended up becoming successful in life. Why did the people who failed become successful? And why did the people who failed and continued failing did not become successful? The difference is your ability to learn from your failure. If you fail and you don't learn from your failure, you will remain a failure. If you fail, but you learn from your failure, you will become successful. In this series, I'm going to be talking about what I call how to use failure as a winning strategy. How to use failure as a winning strategy. The fact is, it's not a crime to fail, but how you respond to failing or to failure is what matters. Your response to failure determines if you're going to end up becoming a failure or going to end up becoming successful. What is failure? Failure is lack of success. Simply, failure is lack of success. What is failure? Failure is non-performance, inability to perform. That's failure. What again is failure? Failure is poor performance of something required or expected. Poor performance of something required or expected. What is failure? Failure is not reaching the required standard. Your inability to reach a required standard. Because in every pursuit, there's a set standard. In every pursuit, there's a targeted standard. If you are not able to meet up with the standard, to reach the standard, whether spiritually, mentally, or physically, you are considered to be a failure. What is failure? Where there is failure, there is disappointment. Where there is failure, there is frustration. Where there is failure, there is deterioration. Because a lot of people decay, not physical decadence, but spiritual, mental, ministry, calling, pursuits, business decadence. As a result of failure, things deteriorate. Where there is failure, there is also deficiency. Where there is no efficiency, that's deficiency. Where there is failure, there is incompetence. Incompetence, where there is failure. So how do you use failure as a way to learn and become successful? There are a series of people, many people in the world today who have become successful. Many of them, or if not all of them, have failed before they became successful. There's nobody who has made it on earth that does not have a success story or a failure as a background to succeeding in life. There's nobody who has made it in life that did not first of all go through turbulence or difficult situations. For you to understand how to use failure as a winning strategy, you must understand what strategy is. If you do not understand strategy, you cannot make use of it. Now, what is strategy? Strategy is actually a military language. Strategy is a language of command. It was first used in the military because when you want to talk about people who really understand strategy, it is the military. So what is strategy? Strategy is the science and art of combining and employing the means of war in planning and directing large military movements and operations. I repeat, strategy is a science and art of combining and employing the means of war in planning and directing large military movements and operations. What other definitions do we know about strategy? Strategy is also a plan. Strategy is a method. Strategy is a series of maneuvers for obtaining a specific goal or result. Strategy is a plan. Strategy is a method. Strategy is a series of maneuvers for obtaining a specific goal or result. We should understand something, that there's a difference between strategy and tactics. There's a difference between strategy and tactics. Now, what's the difference? Because both words or both actions or both principles are applied in the military. And that was what was brought into marketing management, because the strategy of the military and tactics is what is actually used in management, in marketing, and in human resources, and in every aspect of achieving a set target or goals in life. So let's talk about the distinction between strategy and tactics. In military usage, a distinction is made between strategy and tactics. Strategy is the utilization during both peace, when there is peace and war, of all of a nation's forces through large-scale, long-range planning and development to ensure security or victory. So whether in time of peace or in time of war, the ability to use a nation's forces, all of the military installations, in planning for the security of a nation is what strategy is. But what is tactics? Tactics deals with the use and deployment of troops in actual combat. So tactics is only used during warfare. It's not used in the time of peace. You use tactics during warfare to plan and to deploy troops and armaments during a combat. That's what you use tactics for. So understanding how to use failure as a strategy will help you to understand how to strategize, or if you are being tactical, or you are using a strategy. A common example, a very specific example in the Bible I want to major on in this series is the life of Joshua. I looked at that portion of the Bible and I was shocked that a man like Joshua could use failure as a means of re-strategizing and winning a warfare. In the Bible, we all know in the book of Joshua what happened to Jericho. In Jericho, God told them to go around the city in 7 days. The first 6 days, they went around the city once a day for the first 6 days. On the 7th day, they went around the city 7 times and the wall came down. In terms of leadership, in terms of the number of people in Jericho compared to the next city that Israel went to fight against, Jericho was so massive. Jericho had a very solid government. The structure of organization was excellent. So to defeat a well-organized structure, God needed to come in. God needed to be involved. So when Jericho was defeated, there was something that happened. There was another city called Ai. Spelled A-I. Ai. So they felt that, well, Jericho fell. If Jericho can fall, Ai is a small meat to eat. So they wanted to attack the city of Ai. And they made a very strategic error. And as a result of that error, they failed in conquering that city. The first failure I want to address in this series is the failure of assumption. Assumption. I tell you, anybody who makes an assumption is preparing himself for the grave. In whatever you do in life, if